Deryck Whibley is in Studio Q with me right now. Let's start with that photo that you posted of yourself in the hospital.
Yeah.
What led to that moment, and what were you feeling like laying in that bed?
Well, basically, what led to that moment was a lot of what you said. This grinding schedule, and I always had this sort of motto that that I work so hard, so partying so hard is sort of my release. I'm allowed to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think over the years, it just kind of escalated. It got a little bit more and more, and I ended up in the hospital. I just one day my liver failed.
And there you are, a major rock star laying in a hospital bed. What's going through your mind?
I was a little surprised at how bad the situation was for how young it was. I mean, even the doctors were too. Like they were saying, like normally this is something that happens for like a lifelong drinker.
Yeah.
In their 50s or 60s. And I mean, I guess I really went for it. I don't know.
And how old were you at the time?
34. I just turned 34, like 2 weeks before that.
Were you laying there thinking this is it? It's over?
I was being told that that was a strong possibility, but I didn't really believe it. The doctors were saying they were unsure how this was going to play out. They said, they were trying to keep me alive. And then after about 3 or 4 days of that, where they said they were unsure and they didn't know how it was going to turn out, they were going to do their best. All of a sudden, they came in and they said, you know what, you're taking a turn for the better. And it got better. But then throughout the next few weeks, it would go in and out, and I would end up in the ICU a couple times, and it would take a turn for the worse again, and then I'd get better, then bad again.
So when they say, okay, he's taking a turn for the better, so maybe you're going to pull through this, but are you still going to be able to be a rock star? Was any of that going through your mind?
That was definitely going through that was my biggest fear. It wasn't, was I going to live or die? Because I just felt like I was going to live. I just wasn't sure how I was going to live. How I would be out of the hospital. I didn't know the extent of the nerve damage in my feet, and I didn't really know, what, how bad the muscle atrophy was in my legs and stuff like that from just laying in that hospital bed for so long, until I started trying to move around and realized I couldn't stand up, I couldn't support my own weight, and the pain in my feet from all the nerve damage was so bad that it just felt like I was walking on fire all the time. And the doctors didn't know when that was going to get better or if it would get better. So that was probably the biggest fear, is will I ever be able to do anything again,
And did you have any sense at that point, laying there, of who Deryck the non-musician is?
No.
Like, did you have any idea what that would even look like if you couldn't be who you are?
Yeah, no, I had no. I mean, that was the scariest thing. Like, what do I do? I had no idea.
Wow. And so many people reached out to you during that time, I understand, from Iggy Pop to your ex-wife, Avril Lavigne. Is there any gift or message or visit that you received from someone that really stands out as having a lot of impact for you?
I mean, I think everybody that I spoke to, either whether it was friends or family, or even people that reached out to me just through our Facebook, like through our fans, they all sort of helped me. Every day, seeing new fan messages was a real big help. And it may sound sort of cheesy, but like really, the fans really, really got me excited about, trying to get better and be in this band. And I just realized there was still a lot of people out there that cared, and that helped a lot.
Did you have a sense before this happened of how much your fans actually loved you? That
I didn't really
beyond the music?
I didn't really think that. That's why I was so surprised by all these messages, and they were really heartfelt and really, touching, and it really helps a lot.
Was it partly thinking of them that was motivating you to say, like, I've got to make music again?
Totally, yeah. I mean, I had the biggest thing that I kept feeling was that I just had to get a record so I could get out on tour again and see people and just be out on stage and do the whole thing again. I missed it so much. As soon as I was in that hospital bed and I was sober for the first time in a long time, the reality sets in, and I realized what I love most.
Ugh. And so many musicians have fought their battles. Some have lived to tell the tale, and some haven't. Did you find yourself thinking of some of your own rock heroes that have gone through this struggle?
Oh yeah, I mean, I felt like when I was lying in that hospital bed, and I was really bloated, and I had a big beard, and I felt like I really took my love for Jim Morrison to a new level. you
Right?
know?
Right? Because he
Yeah,
aged 35 years
yeah,
between 22 and 28.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah, that is so interesting because the picture, I didn't want to be indelicate, but since you raised it, the picture,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you looked like you had lived 7 lives
Mm-hmm.
up until that point. And you were a young man in that shot and
Yeah.
still are,
Yeah.
really. Um, the band finished one of its longest tours back in 2013. You
Mm-hmm.
already alluded to the fact that you've got a killer work ethic. You had it in your mind that like, okay, if I work hard, then I should be able to play hard.
Mm-hmm.
But after you ended up in the hospital, you have to then say, okay, I got to take time for me. I finally have to like face the person in the mirror and I got to do some work here with me. What was it like for you to have to stand still, be in one place after what must seem like a lifetime of just go, go, go?
Um. Well, I guess it was somewhat nice to be at home,
Oh,
and
yeah.
sort of have somewhat of a routine. Unfortunately, my routine was, waking up really early and going to physiotherapy and all that kind of stuff, and just trying to recover and get better. I would have this long sort of workout routine throughout the day, and then I would start trying to write music at night. And at first, it was really difficult. I mean, nothing musically was coming. I didn't even know how to. I couldn't play guitar at first, so I had to relearn how to do that. And basically, every instrument, I couldn't really play piano. I couldn't do anything. Everything just seems like I was learning from the beginning. It didn't take as long as it did when I was 13 to sort of learn how to play these instruments again, but it was definitely frightening. That probably scared me more than lying in the hospital wondering if I was going to live or die, because like I said, I felt like I was going to live. When I was relearning how to play instruments, that was more scary because I didn't know how long that was going to take to come back. And in my head, I'm like, I need to start working now.
Yeah.
I need to start writing music, and I can't even play my guitar.
Was there anger? Were there moments of anger?
Yeah, I was like sort of in those moments was like the first time I felt that, okay, now I regret something, because I never really regretted anything that I'd done. Up until that moment, I felt like,
Interesting.
okay, now I can honestly say maybe I have a regret now. But then after getting over all that and going through everything, now I wouldn't change it. Now, to me, it was like the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I love going through those things that are so difficult and so hard, because I feel like you learn so much from it, and I feel I enjoy the person that I am now way more because of everything that I've gone through.
Maya Angelou so famously said, "Wouldn't take nothing from my journey now."
Yeah.
Right? It's amazing. Am I hearing you right that what you're saying is it was scarier to not know how to play music than to not walk?
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, definitely.
That's amazing. How long did it take before you started to feel like, okay, it's going to come back. I'm going to be me again?
I would say it took over a year, really. And I was working at it every day, so it felt like a decade to me.
And with working with the music, you were also working with yourself, AA meetings, all this
Yeah.
physio to learn how to walk. And I understand you had a huge fear at the time that maybe you would fall on stage. That
Yeah,
somehow you're.
definitely.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I knew that I couldn't. My balance was so bad for so long that I couldn't really walk more than 5 steps without kind of like needing to reach for a wall or something, and I would just kind of fall over. And that stayed with me for the better part of a year and a bit, maybe a year and a half. And I knew that it was really hard to just stand on my feet because of the pain for more than 15 minutes. So I just didn't know if I was going to be able to go on stage. I didn't know if that was going to get better. And like I said, the doctors didn't know either. It was a wait and see situation the whole time.
Did you fear during that time? I've had a fear of, I'm a comic, I've had a fear of falling on stage. I have very bad arthritis. And until I fell, I did fall. It happened, and then I was like, okay, I guess I don't have to fear that anymore.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just happened. Did you fear that the fans wouldn't be with you if you fell?
I don't know.
Like, what was it
I
that
don't
you
know
were
what my
fearing
fear
most?
was. I guess is possibly that it would be a thing that would happen every night. Like that would become my thing. I can't stand for more than 15 minutes and I would fall over. And I really did not want that to be, part of my routine.
What you're known for,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, it, it just, after I finally was able to do the first show, everything felt great. I mean, it was harder to sort of walk around backstage than to be on stage. Once I was on stage, that felt great. I had no issues whatsoever. But then, leading up to that, walking around backstage felt like, I don't know if I can make it. I don't know what I'm going to be like.
The gene of musicians is like the most incredible thing. If you watch that Glen Campbell documentary, Alzheimer's is taking his brain. He can't carry on a conversation. You strap a guitar on him and put him on stage and say, do a solo. And he's just scaling that guitar neck like there's no tomorrow. Take the guitar away, he steps off stage, he can't talk again.
Yeah.
Do you have any sense of what it is? That, is it in your emotion?
I think some people are just meant to do it. And that's pretty much, it's like what you said before when you asked me, like, did I think about, me not as a musician? There was nothing there. I didn't know. There's nothing else that I really know or care to do.
That's it. You're a musician.
You're just sort of meant to do it, I guess.
Well, speaking of that incredible music, the first song you wrote after being released from the hospital is called Murder of Crows. Can you talk a bit about that song and the motivation of it?
Yeah, I mean, that was the first song when I got out of the hospital. When I got out of the hospital, I had realized, there was a certain group of friends and people in my life that really stuck with me through the really tough times. They were there for the good times, but they stuck with me through all that. But then there was, oddly enough, like the people that were the closest to me, someone who was even in my family, and people that I sort of brought right from the very beginning, people I grew up with and went to school with, that were, it was a small group of my really, really close friends. As soon as things got bad for me, they just split. They were gone. And that surprised me the most because I did the thing that you're supposed to do, when you have success, is you stick with the people that you knew way before that.
Yeah.
Your family and things like that. And because they'll never screw you. Well, they were the ones who screwed me. So not only did they just leave me, I mean, then I found out like throughout that whole time they were stealing from me and, things like that. So I became really angry, and that's what that song's about. Is about that group of say four or five people in my life that are just at this point. I just remember saying they're dead to me. I can't talk to them anymore. And then that song just kind of came out of nowhere. That was the first one.
Do you spend much time reflecting on the fact that had this not happened to you, you might never have known the reality of those relationships?
I probably would have figured it out. But yeah, it probably would have taken a lot longer. And, who knows how I would have reacted. But I think being really clear and sober, it wasn't that I found out because I was sober. I would have found out anyway. I think the way I reacted to it. When you're sober, you just have no time for stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you're drinking, you can kind of let things go.
Yeah.
It's because you don't want to
Easier to
ruin
deal with.
you don't want to ruin the moment. You're having a good time. It's like, why deal with any of
Good
that?
buzz. Don't bring the buzz down.
Yeah.
That's right.
When you're sober, you have no time.
There are also, though, tons of writers in history who think that buzz adds to their writing ability. Mm-hmm. What was it like for you to write sober?
It was awful at first.
Was it?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to do it now, but going through that process of recovery and all that work I had to do, all the physiotherapy and all the AA and all that kind of stuff, and all these thoughts that are going on in your mind, all this doubt and insecurity and overanalyzing. That was awful to be writing in that period. Learning how to be yourself again through just learning how to be in public, and everything was so new, especially since I've been drinking since I was a teenager. I went 17 years with not very many days off of drinking.
Did you have a sense that you were an alcoholic, or did you just think, no?
I knew that I partied quite a bit. I felt like I was an alcoholic by the last year, and I think that's what it was. I always had a pretty good handle on it.
Right.
I could go into party mode, but I can be in sober work mode at the same time, and I would float in between, in and out of those two kind of lifestyles. Whereas, say, the last year and a half, it got really bad. And that's when I knew at that point that this was something I was going to have to deal with. I just wasn't quite ready. It's one of those, I'll deal with it tomorrow sort of situations. And of course, tomorrow never comes.
In the front of Nikki Sixx's book, The Heroin Diaries, he puts an Oxford definition of addiction, which is the standard addiction. And then he says, definition of addiction, according to Lemmy Kilmeister, which is, it's anything I can quit whenever I want, as long as that's next Tuesday. Right? But certainly not today.
Yeah.
You got to today. You finally got to next Tuesday. We were just talking about how hard it was to write at the beginning. I've seen it written everywhere that people who drink excessively, eat excessively, do drugs excessively, whatever, that there are sometimes things that they're trying to mask or to escape from. Was that your experience? Did you find that all of a sudden in recovery, all this stuff was like up in your face as you were trying to create?
I don't think so. It was, the way I party, it was because it was fun.
Yeah.
Life was pretty good sober. I didn't really have any issues to hide or mask. It was just a fun release because I worked so hard.
Right.
And it was always a great time, and I'm a really happy drinker. So it was always a good time. And everybody I know drinks. It wasn't like it was just me and nobody else was around.
Yeah, you weren't the drunk guy in the room.
It was everybody in my life partied hard. That's just what we did. I would say when I went through my divorce, the pain of that was probably the first time I started drinking probably a little bit more to sort of hide or mask that,
Right.
And then I was injured and I hurt my back, and that was physical pain. And I realized, every time I had a couple of drinks, I felt better. The pain
away.
The pain would go away. And I used to say to myself, well, this is much better than probably being addicted to painkillers. I'd rather just have a couple of drinks and let, that's much better. But, that was already topping up what I was already doing, which was already excessive, So that's when it escalated and turned into sort of a physical dependency.
So do you have any like new techniques you have to use when you're writing now?
I don't know. I mean, with that record, yeah, but to start me off, because I couldn't really write anything at first. Nothing was coming. What I would do is I would put on movies with no sound and just start trying to write guitar riffs and things just to the images. So whatever the images were inspiring. And I would put on Tim Burton kind of movies, really sort of creative and inspiring visuals.
Yeah.
And Quentin Tarantino movies like Kill Bill and stuff like that. So I had like Edward Scissorhands and Kill Bill and Inglourious Basterds, Sweeney Todd. And it just sort of made me start writing things in a different way.
That's some great creative inspiration. It obviously worked out. The album's first official single is called War. You've said that writing War has actually saved your life. What did you mean by that?
Well, when I wrote those lyrics, I was sort of at a tipping point in my recovery because it had been about a year and it felt like it was a never-ending recovery that had no progress. I just didn't feel like I was getting any better whatsoever. And I could have easily at that moment just said, I'm just going to go back to drinking because this is no way to live. I can't live in this much pain. I can't live. This is not really a life. I'd rather, if that's going to kill me, I'd rather just at least enjoy myself.
Die happy.
And this sort of lyric just popped into my head at that moment of what am I fighting for? And, then I thought, well, everything back and more. I want what I had, but more. I want more out of life than I had before. And it sort of gave me this thought of what it means to really have faith in something, that to believe in something that you don't know what the outcome's going to be. It's sort of believing in the unknown, because even the doctors, like I said, didn't know if I was going to get better. But I thought if I fight and I work even harder than I've been working, I'll get there. And as long as I believe it, that's what's going to push me forward. Or rather pull me. And so that's what I did, and I came out for the better,
Do you think you're a different person now in terms of, you just mentioned what it's like to live with the pain. So now you've had some experiences that a lot of other people deal with all the time. Do you think you're a more empathetic person, that you're a different man now because of this? And that you see others differently?
Yes and no. I mean, I think I'm still very much the same. I think, well, yeah. I mean, I'm definitely different, but I'm also older. You know, you change as you get older. There's just life experience. Of course, you know, life experience will sort of dictate your sort of view of existence. So, yeah, as I get older and the more things I go through, I think that it'll always change me.
So now you're going to go out and tour the album,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to tour sober.
Yes.
What's that going to be like?
It's actually really good. You know, we've been on tour for the better part of this whole year, and I really enjoy it. You know, because you feel more, you notice things more, and being on stage. I used to think that if I didn't drink before I went on stage, and I never really got too drunk before I went on stage. I mean, we all drank before, and the other guys still do drink before they go on. But you always had a couple drinks to sort of loosen up and get a little buzz and go
Yeah.
out there. And I used to think if I didn't do that, it might be boring, you know, on stage because I had
Right.
so much fun when I had a couple drinks. But it's actually I find I'm having more fun now on stage than I was when I had a couple drinks, and I don't really want to change that, you know, at least for right now. I mean, that's the thing, and I'm not really like a one day at a time person. I'm just everything just feels really good, and I don't really feel tempted, and everything is so great, so I don't really want to disrupt that. But I also know, you know, that may not last forever, and it may become difficult sometime. I have no idea. All I know is
Yeah.
for right now, it's great, and it seems easy, and I enjoy it.
Well, fans and I are both thrilled. Thank you so much for talking so generously about this in this
Cool. Thanks for having me.
conversation.